Over the course of the ninth grade year, I have evolved as a writer. My writing grew in the areas of reader response, style, vocabulary, mechanics, and syntax, adding muscle to my skeletal strengths in critical analysis and organization. We started the year off with a formative writing assessment based on the novel When I Was Joe. I chose to research and write a magazine article on a social issue, a topic referred to many times in the novel, cutting, a form of self-inflicted injury. Looking back on my first effort of the year, there were clearly gaps in my writing. I had done a great deal of research on cutting. As a result of this in-depth understanding of the issue, the article was detailed and analytical. Here is an example of the research that I did before I started writing the piece. I organized the different parts of the topic into subtopics so that when I organized my piece, I could split each paragraph into one of those. My ideas were organized logically and were effectively enhanced by appropriate cohesive devices. However, there was a significant shortcoming in the article. It would not resonate with the intended audience. For an article in a magazine for teens, its tone was formal and factual, better suited to inform parents and adults about the issue than to engage a teen. Moreover, there was a lack of style in my piece, and there were many places where there were awkward transitions and a lack of cohesion between different ideas in the paragraphs. For example, between these two paragraphs there was a jumping between them, and there is no real connection or flow. In addition, there's an awkward transition over here, and between the last two paragraphs there's still, again, no connection or flow between them. While the vocabulary was good and wide-ranging throughout the piece, the mechanics and syntax were monotonous and the sentence structure was simple. The type of my sentences did not vary, and neither did that of coordinated and subordinated structures. For example, in this paragraph, these 4 sentences were structured in a very similar way. And also, in this paragraph, these 3 sentences were structured in a very similar way with the coordinate and subordinate clauses in the same order and not varying in structure. As can be seen, there was a lot of room for progress after my first piece of writing. The next major writing effort was on an autobiographical incident. In this descriptive essay, I applied many rhetorical devices. This can be seen in my final over here, where I used diction, imagery, monologue, and showy language that we learned about throughout the unit. Here you can see examples of my diction that I used, the internal monologue, imagery, and also the use of metaphors. Brainstorming and planning in this essay was a major contribution to how good my final turned out, and it played a great part in shaping the final outcome. Over here, my brainstorming for the essay can be seen, as well as my draft 1 and my draft 2. In the finished essay, a lot of improvement can be seen in the use of vocabulary, mechanics, style, and syntax, and the fluidity and use of rhetoric devices and imagery. For an example, over here, the 3 sentences in green, blue, and red are all using different sentence structures, and the mechanics and syntax of how I constructed the sentence structures was improved from the last piece of work that I did, as I was experimenting with different lengths of sentences and different ways of structuring them. It can also be seen once again in this paragraph where the three sentences in blue, red, and green are also different structures. In the end, I had done a lot of improvement in the use of vocabulary, mechanics, syntax, style, and fluidity, and the use of rhetoric devices and imagery, and the progress was almost tangible. The third major writing sample that highlights the progress of my writing is the Power Reading Cornerstone Assessment, the pastiche on the novel Marcello in the Real World. This pastiche focused mainly on using imagery and showing not telling language. This was entirely new for me. For this assessment, I had to do a lot of planning and brainstorming of ideas, as can be seen here in my plan, and I had also done a lot of different drafts for versions before I did my final. There are many examples of the multiple drafts that I had to do during the writing process and all of the changes that I had to make to my storyline and scenes that I was going to include in the story. In my final pastiche, I used a lot of imagery in showing not telling language. I also improved my vocabulary and included a wider range of words in my writing. Here, the imagery that I used in my pastiche final can be seen as highlighted. An example is a sweet, pleasant scent that floats up my nostrils as I inhale. This is an example of imagery through smell, and it was an entirely new concept for me to use imagery in my writing and to write things descriptively and so that the reader can experience it while they read it. And also I improved my mechanics and syntax as shown over here with the three different colors of sentences, three different sentences that I structured in different ways. In reviewing the work that I did over the course of the year, it is clear that I have evolved as a writer. Specifically, I have learned reader response, my awareness of the purpose and intended audience improved, critical analysis, I have continued to show depth and thought in my pieces. Organization, I have learned to organize my ideas in a logical and effective manner. Style, I have improved the overall clarity and fluidity through my pieces. Vocabulary, I improved my overall word choice and started trying to use a wider range of vocabulary in my writing. Mechanics and syntax, I learned to vary the lengths and types of sentences in my writing and change their structure. I know that I have improved a lot throughout the course of the 9th year, but there is still a lot more that I can do to improve further as a writer in my 10th grade year. And two major action goals that I will focus on for next year is one, to read more so that I can understand the structure of the writing of different works and input this understanding into my own writing. And secondly, to write more, whether it be letters, postcards, emails, a diary, journal, anything, but to strive for perfection through practice. Thank you.